is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This is episode number 597. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and our other Limited Resource, Luis, well, he's actually on vacation this week. He's out in some cabin in the woods or something with friends and family. So no Luis this week, but don't worry. I've got the bases covered for that. Before we get into that, though, got to mention our sponsor, channelfireball.com. It's a place to go for really anything you need magic related. They've got singles. Yes, they do. They have sealed product. You can get supplies, anything you need. You can also sign up for CFB Pro, which is kind of the next level of content. They have free content on the site. My draft videos are still free, but they also have more in-depth stuff that you can get access to on CFB Pro. And that's for, people that are looking to really up their game. You want to go up the ladder quickly on Arena or try to qualify for a bigger tournament. That's kind of where that's focused. And so if that's where you're at, which there's a pretty good chance that that's where you're at since you're listening to this show, you can check out CFB Pro. They have a bunch of different ways to pay for it. You have to check out the exact specifics, but the basic way it works is like $5 a month, or if you want, it can be $10 a month, but you get $10 in store credit at CFB. So if you're spending that much anyway, then it ends up netting out to zero, basically. So either way, the content's there. It's really good, and you should definitely check it out. And while you're there, you can check out all the other great stuff going on at Channel Fireball. If you do end up signing up for CFB Pro or buying anything or like that, I'd appreciate it if you use the affiliate code LR. It helps out the show, and it lets them know that we sent you over there, and we appreciate that. So there you go. The show is, of course, also brought to you by you via the Patreon. That's patreon.com/limited resources. I want to thank everybody who signed up in the last, since the last show. It really means a lot to us. Fantastic. It's just, this is the Patreon ends up being the thing that kind of is the core of the show as far as monetization goes. That's just the truth of it. And we really appreciate each and every one of you who signed up. If you do sign up, you get a thank you card in the mail with a sticker. And for any level, I wanted to make it so that anybody who signed up to support us got that. And then as you kind of go up the ranks there's cool little bonuses that you can get as well. One of the bonuses, by the way, that you get for any level at the Patreon, the $1 level included, is you get access to the Patreon feed, which is where we ask our patrons for questions and such. And there was a thread this week for that because we've got a special guest, and the questions were for our special guest, and I'm going to bring him in right now. So joining us now is Tom the Boss Ross. Tom, how are you?
Hey, what's up, Marshall? Glad
Not much, man. Yeah, I'm really glad that we were able to sync up. We've been kind of swapping DMs for a couple of weeks here, trying to find the right window, because, we have when the new sets come out, we've got the set review and the 2 set review shows and then the initial impressions. And we usually do kind of maybe 4 or 5 shows around with the new sets that are kind of locked in, and then we can open it up. And so, yeah, really happy that you were able to come on and talk. We'll talk Magic with us, and we're going to be talking Limited and all that. And what I was mentioning, by the way, on the Patreon is I put up a post that said, hey, do you have any questions for Tom Ross? If you have any, post them here. And I got a bunch of great questions from our patrons, which we're going to be going through here as well. So, Tom, cool. I thought to kick things off, we would just dive right in and do a Crack-A-Pack. How does that sound to you?
That sounds great to me.
Yeah, so we'll do a Strixhaven Crack-A-Pack, and then we'll have a conversation after that, about you and about Strixhaven and about Limited and a bunch of other cool topics. So, imagine me virtually opening the pack, and our first card out, I'm going to start with our lesson card, is Elemental Summoning. That's the 4/4 for 3 blue, 3 red, or 3 blue-red. Where are you at on that one?
I want it in my deck if I can cast it. I'm pretty big on lessons. I take them pretty highly.
Mm-hmm. And by in your deck, you mean in your sideboard, right?
Yeah, my sideboard.
Somehow a much, much worse card, Ogiar Battleseer, 3 blue-red for the 3/4 haste that can tap to scry 1. I thought this one was kind of interesting, Tom, because we haven't seen this in a while where a creature has a reasonable power and toughness level, with haste. So you'd I want to get in there and attack. But then it also has a tap ability that's fairly minor, kind of forcing you to make the decision on, are you attacking right now or are you scrying right now?
So that's like a versatile card that does a lot of things very poorly. It costs 5. By the time you're casting all 5, it doesn't attack very well. scries like kind of slowly. It's not like helping you hit land drops, or like it can't help you hit spells. But at that point, like, what are you doing with your 5-drop? And at 5 mana, 4 toughness card, doesn't block very well. Doesn't attack, doesn't block, and scrying is okay. It's a card that I do not want to play with decks.
Yeah, and appropriately, it doesn't see a lot of play. Next is Unwilling Ingredient. This is black for a 1/1 frog. It has menace, and you can pay 2 and a black and exile it from your graveyard to draw a card and gain a life. Continuing the trend of 1-drop creatures being more and more relevant, this is another one of those. Unwilling Ingredient seems to get pretty widespread play.
I like it in my black-white decks, my silver quill decks, when I can put counters on it. I like Guiding Light quite a lot. I think it's the card, right?
One mana, the white 1-drop that puts a counter on and learns.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If I can pump it up a little bit, or if I have ways to like use it, like, it's fine in the black-green decks as well. It's also a card that I don't love to play because it's a card you can improve on a lot. And like card quality is like not a very strong card. Like, kind of need to turn 1 and beat them down a little bit, or want to block with it, or want to sacrifice with it, and all those parts don't always come together. So it asks a lot. And individually on power level, it's not that strong. So I avoid it if I can, but if you just fall into a deck that can use it, like a good white-black beatdown deck, then I like it in those decks. The low curve, like 16 land, black-white decks.
Put a counter on it. Yeah, I like that. Next card is Square Up. That's the 1 in a green-blue hybrid. Instant creature has base power and toughness 4/4 until end of turn. I feel like maybe part of the trick to this was like, hey, you can target a fractal and it becomes even bigger thanks to the counters or something, but it never happens. I don't think I've ever even seen anybody cast this.
Yeah, it's tough to do it on fractals. I don't think it's very good in blue-green. I've played it in blue-red a little bit when the spells mattered more. And yeah, I've cast it on fractals. It wouldn't like game winning or whatever, but it was like relevant to the game, where +4/+4 is a little bit different than the, say, +2/+2 you get out of the card normally. I never shrunk a card with Square Up.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, of the times I've had it, I probably played it about 5% of the time. I would avoid it. Yeah, it's one of the Christopher card is one of the worst cards in the set. As far as playability goes.
Right. I mean, I look at any card and I mean, if it's going to have a relatively minor effect like this and it doesn't say learn on it, I'm pretty much out. You know?
The pump spells in the set are all much better, and this is like a 2 mana +2/+2 on average at best, really.
Yeah. Campus Guide is next. It's 2 mana 2/1. And when it ETBs, you can search your library for a basic land card and put it on top of your library.
Yeah. In draft, I like to play 2-color decks, and if I play 2-color decks, I want to avoid this. I do play Mardu every now and then. I play like Teamer every now and then, or just whatever 3-color decks. And if I don't get the campuses, I don't get the environmental sciences, and my deck's needing a card like this, especially if I need 2 drops. Like 2/1s are just about as good as 2/2s, as long as you're not facing like a pest summoning or whatever. So yeah, Phil's rolls, it looks a little bit bad on paper because it's just a 2 mana 2/1, but I mean, it's colorless, so if you just have swamp in your opening hand, this will get you in the game where you could otherwise not play a game of Magic. So yeah, it's pretty average, but average is sometimes what you need to fill out what your deck needs.
Yeah, I think I have it in the necessary evil camp, right? Like I play it when I have to, but I don't do it otherwise. Arrogant Poet is next. This is the 1 in a black 2/1, and whenever it attacks, you can pay 2 life to give it flying until end of turn.
Yeah, I like this in basically only aggressive Silver Quill. Silver Quill has a ton of flyers. It has like the 3/1 they can gain flying to Silver Quill. Pledge Mage. It has like evasion. It has like Killian.
Combat Professor.
Combat Professor. Like even a 1/2 flyer can jump your other creatures too. So when I'm Silver Quill, I want to be like racing them, throw them with a ton of evasion, playing some pump spells and hope to win before they can really do their fractal summoning thing or whatever. So yeah, I found that card's pretty good in that deck where you want to race and want to fly over and just need a density of flyers.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, I wouldn't play in black green or like a Mardu deck or whatever.
Okay, yeah, it does seem to really slot into that one deck. Reject is 1 and a blue instant, counter target creature, planeswalker, unless his controller pays 3. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it in his graveyard. I think I got hit by this once.
I played it a lot. I played against it a lot. I played a lot of Sealed when the format first started.
Mm-hmm.
And Reject is slightly better in Sealed than it is in Draft. But I like Reject when I leave up mana naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So say you have a Prismari Pledge Mage.
Mm-hmm.
A deck with Prismari Pledge Mage, Reject is worse, I think. And a deck with a bunch of like Pop Quids is better.
Right.
Or this whenever you can like have reason to leave up 5 mana. Maybe it's the 5 mana draw 4, discard 2 or something.
Mm-hmm.
If you're already leaving up mana for something you want to do, then I don't mind Reject. If you're tapping out, then Reject is not the card for you. Even card like Curate, if you leave up Curate plus Reject, then that's all right.
Yeah, it's interesting because, just at face value, Reject actually looks reasonable. I find it to be a card I avoid because of the fact that so many cards in this set are creatures that aren't creatures, right? They're like, Inkling summoning, all the summonings. And I'm like sitting there staring at this Reject as my opponent is like completely tapping it out for a fractal summoning, right? This is where this card should really shine, right? Like that it should just be able to basically blank a big, X spell creature and it just doesn't do anything. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm off it.
Previous limited formats, Essence Scatter has been one of the premium cards.
Yeah.
For limited formats, but this is not Essence Scatter, and we learned that because everybody learns for elemental summoning and fractal summoning, like you said, and that made me appreciate the reverse of it, the negates of the format, the Tessa talents, and then in negate. Tessa talents has been one of the cards that was pretty low on my order earlier, but then I learned that it just I exile their. I mean, this format's way more spells than it looks at first because you're learning for lessons, of course. But like, you also look at their hand, their deck.
Totally.
It's like, wow.
Yeah.
And maybe they have 2 or 3 bury the books in their hand. You got the first one. Now you look at their hand. You got the rest of them. Like, wow, the card's amazing.
It really is. Yeah. I guess it's funny because it took me a while to really cement that in my head, what you just described about how many spells there actually are in the set. But I suppose we had a pretty big hint when Magecraft was kind of a like all the colors touch, the one mechanic that is sort of shared by everything. And I'm like, well, maybe I should have recognized that a little more, that the Magecraft triggers would be flying all the time. I mean, it's not hard to get them. If you have a Magecraft creature, I usually expect that it will trigger 2 times, maybe 3 times in a game, like on average. So that's not even like a great scenario. That's just like kind of par for the course, and we've had to all adjust that, Quandrix Pledge Mage is one of them, that I had like, okay, this looks okay. And it's like, no, that card's really good. Like that is a card that will absolutely get out of hand if it's left unchecked, and, I think that's all sort of tied to the same thing. Big Play is next. It's 1 and a green for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains reach until end of turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on it. Interesting. Again, this is a totally serviceable combat trick, right? You get a counter, you get the +2/+2, you get the reach. You could turn it into a removal spell or just to win combat, but I almost never play it either. I really do focus on these type of spells, to have learn. I just find that like you can fill the slots in your deck for the most part with cards that are maybe not as quite impactful as Big Play, but at least in the ballpark, but also get learn out of it, which is just, puts it into a different category.
Yeah. The pump spells, especially one like that where you add a counter, they are less important basically because of expanded anatomy. You can learn for that. And you can side your creatures appropriately, for combat when you expect to attack.
Mm-hmm.
The reach part is relevant, but not that relevant for like a 2 mana +3/+3. Yeah, I try to avoid the card.
What's your take on Expanded Anatomy? It's been one of the biggest surprises for us here on the show. When we reviewed it, we kind of approached it like it was more like a throwaway lesson, right? It was like
you just get it when you can get it.
Yeah. My take on it was like, I kind of reverse engineer this stuff the best I can, which sometimes misses quite hard, but sometimes I'm right, which is like, I look at it like, okay, you're in the room at R&D and you're throwing around, okay, what kind of lessons do we want? All right, well, we'll have this cycle of summonings that make creatures. Okay, so those are going to be good ones. What else do we want to do at common? And, somebody raises their hand and they're like, we should have a card draw spell. Okay, we'll make expensive preordain. Cool. That's good. What else we got? And eventually somebody says, should we do a combat trick? And they're like, well, these are sorceries, but we can do something, gets a couple of counters and vigilance, tell them to turn for 3. It's not a card that you would ever really put into a limited deck and be happy about. And so I just kind of thought, yeah, they checked that box, right? They did something that augmented a creature. And that's fine. Now they kind of, because again, part of the shtick, at least from my perspective about Lesson, was that you get a toolbox, right? You get to pick the things that are good for the situation that you're in. But, and while that may be true or not, my theory there, however it came to be, that card, like, it matters. Like, it turns out that having a powerful effect like that, when you can actually use it, need it, want it, it changes it completely. Because if that card was just printed as a non-lesson, it would just never see play. Like, people just wouldn't put it in their deck because it's like, sorcery speed, super slow combat trick thing, and those just don't ever see play. Really interesting though, because when you can get it when you want it, all of a sudden it shoots up, and it in fact has quite a high win percentage when cast. I guess that should be obvious because people are only casting it when it's good, but still, really changed my outlook on the lesson cards when we started to figure that out.
Yeah, we see a very similar looking card, and was it Essence something that gets +2/+2 counters, and
Essence Infusion, the black card, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's like a way less playable because you're not able to get it when you want, but
totally.
But Expanded Anatomy, you get it when you need it, and you cast it when you need to cast it, and then for me, it always enables an attack that would not otherwise be. I would not otherwise have an attack, and often it also enables a block that I wouldn't have to have before either.
Definitely,
like I could just play it on, like, say, I'll shoot small here and say I played on Inkling Summoning.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going through their Inkling Summoning, and now they can't attack you with their Inkling Summoning. So that's like a huge swing. So totally. Like I hit, it's like almost like a Drain Life type effect.
It does feel like that. Presence. Yeah, and then the thing that we didn't really put together, or I mean, we would have if we would have given the card more thought probably, but is also just that, those counters are picking up whatever abilities the creature that you have. So if, the thing has lifelink, that's 2 +1/+1 lifelink counters effective, making that creature that much bigger. Double strike we've seen pop up where it's like, whoa, all of a sudden there's a lethal attack. Flying, of course, is the classic that you just described where, those are points of power that are getting in, and, they feel, it feels like you renewed a creature on your board, that didn't exist. Anyway, I'll continue us along here. Lorehold Pledge Mage is the 2/2 with first strike with Magecraft. It gets +1/+0. Where are you at on that one?
Yeah, I'm pretty low on it. That may be just because I'm pretty low on Lorehold in general. Mm-hmm. Don't really love it in my Prismari decks because I'm likely going to lean blue because I'll probably likely have some kind of blue cantrips in there. Maybe it's Op, maybe it's Curate, maybe it's Strategic Planning, something I found. But I usually lean blue in Prismari, and what's the other one? Red, blue, and white, and white and black. Yeah. It's not great in white black because I want to be evasion flying in white black.
Right.
So yeah, it doesn't really have a home in any decks that I like to draft.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. Speaking of, Ageless Guardian, 1 and a white for a 1/4. Nope. That brings us to the uncommons. Our first one is Umbral Juke. This card's been good. 2 and a black instant. You can either have players sack a creature or you can make a 2/1 Inkling. I like that card.
I found it to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can get in situations where it's kind of disappointing if they got some pest summoning or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or have their own um, own their own ingredient or something. But yeah, it's versatile. I mean, it's costed well to be as versatile as it is, and it's just, like I said, I don't know if I said it already, but I do like to draft Morty a lot. I like to draft like a bunch of learn, a bunch of removal, and that's a kind of card that is better when you have like a ton of removal. If you have like the if you have like a shock,
Totally.
lash of malice, heated debate, things like that. If you can remove or deal or trade with their small stuff and get a juke for their like 5-mana 5/5 or something, then it's gonna be great.
Oh,
Or
it
if you
feels
just
so
need a
good.
little bit of evasion, yeah, it's good in black white too. We just like want a little bit of evasion, or like maybe your small things trade with them because like an eager first year can trade very well. Like they want to trade with that card sometimes. Yeah, decks that can trade well, or decks that normally just kill everything. Umbledee's gonna be good then.
It feels so good when you nab, like the Witherbloom Pledge Mage or whatever with the Umbral Duke. Right. And then, and like you mentioned, the backup plan's totally fine. I mean, you're paying the same price that you would for the summoning. It's just you even, as far as, what do they call it now? Mana value goes, but you're still getting the same, but you're getting it at instant speed as well. So that can change math a little bit. Boy, this next card I love too. It's Returned Pass Caller. That's the 3 red white and then a red white hybrid for the 4/2 flying bird. Or actually, it's not even a bird. It's a spirit cleric. But when it ETBs, you can return a spirit, instant, or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Ooh, I love that one. I splash for this card even in my spells decks because it's just so strong.
Yeah, basically only splash for it. It's a like signpost card for lower hold. It's like bringing back a thing, get from the graveyard. A lot of things trigger from the graveyard and lower hold. But I like playing this out of in my blue red Prismari decks, splashing for this, or in a black white deck, splashing for this. And the decks that go a little bit bigger. And some decks I get black white, and I don't get like Lash of Malice. I get like Rise X's just because that's what the packs are giving me. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be a little bigger. And if I'm being a little bigger, then I can play a card like Return Pass Caller and bring back, whatever my heated debate or whatever thing, or my good spirit or whatever. And that's the way it rolls. But I rarely play this in normal lower hold.
Yeah.
Of the red white decks I've had, I've wanted to be aggressive, and this didn't fit it, but it fit in as a splash. And it's a very splashable card.
It is. Oh, it's so sweet. Because, I mean, I just go big with this thing, right? Like, I play this thing and get back one of the 7 or 8 drop, like Prismari instants or sorceries or whatever. And I'm just like, can't lose now, right? Like, you cast, like, deal 5, look at the top 5, get a card, and then you return Pass Caller. And most people are just like, all right, we're done here, And it's also underrated a little because you're playing it for that plus the body, but like 4 power in the air actually cracks pretty hard. Like they've often used up their, like you mentioned, the lash or whatever on something smaller way earlier in the game. And I'm always surprised, even with just 2 toughness on a 6-mana creature, how often the Pass Caller kind of sticks around and is a real problem for the opponent. That would be my pick currently. We've got 2 more. Well, we got an uncommon, a rare, and then our Mystical Archive card. The last uncommon is Humiliate, and that's the black-white sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. They discard it, and this looked like a little bit of tacked-on text to me when I first saw it, but after playing against it, it's like, no, it actually matters a lot. You get to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. And even though I think the +1/+1 counters theme in Strixhaven largely missed, the one for, I guess it's a Silver Quill sub theme or something. There's a couple of cards that reference it. I never see those actually do the thing that they're trying to do. And I think that Humiliate was trying to kind of add to that. Whatever, like a +1/+1 counter on your creature is still a +1/+1 counter on your creature. And it matters. I think it, the thing that stands out to me the most is something that you referenced a minute ago, Tom, when you said that it can enable an attack that didn't exist before that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a combo with Unwilling Ingredient. Of the discard spells in the format, I like this better in Duress, and I like it better in Agonizing Remorse, even though it's harder to cast. Just because it does the thing in the deck you're doing. Like you said, Silver Silver Quill is black white and is +1/+1 counter theme, even though it's not very apparent or useful, or it doesn't come up that much. But when it comes up, it comes up. I mean, there's like Duelist Coach, and there's a 5-mana 2/2 that you put a counter and
they drain,
attack, gain life, whatever. There's like Spiteful Squad. There's a bunch of cards, and there's a bunch of flyers. You just put a counter on a flyer, and enable attacks that or can't be enabled before. You can see their hand, take their best card. I mean, I've cast a card when they had like no cards in the hand. I put the counter on something and enable attack that I didn't have before. I mean, the card is useful throughout all stages of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the nut draw would be like ingredient into this.
Oh yeah,
just start beating them down, take their 3-drop or whatever.
Oh, that's dreamy stuff.
Mage.
Yeah. I like the way you think, Tom Ross. That's some nice curve out right there. All right, do you want to know what our rare is?
Nope.
I'm going to tell you anyway. It is Verdant Mastery. It's not very good. It's 5 and a green for a sorcery. It says search your library for up to 4 basic land cards and reveal them. Put one of them into onto the battlefield tapped under an opponent's controller. If you paid 3 and a green to cast this, which you can choose to do when you cast it, put 2 of them onto the battlefield tapped under your control. And the rest into your hand and then shuffle. So if you pay 3 and a green, then you ramp your opponent as well as you. If you pay 5 and a green, it is a double cultivate, but you have 6 mana. Like, what are we doing here, right? Like, you need a house on top of your skyscraper? Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I've seen this only out of blue-green. I've never cast a card myself. I've always declined my option whenever I saw it in draft. But I've seen people cast it out of blue-green. It was okay. It was worse than Cultivate every time I see it cast.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a card I would take if I was already blue-green and needed ramp desperately.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had no cultivates, no field trips, no Quandrix cultivators, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I got this 10th pick, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I really need to cast these 2 bookworms I have. Somehow.
Yeah. This is a pretty narrow scenario you're outlining. Yeah, I can kind of get your vibe for the card based on this.
That is what I would pick it.
Yeah, we found it. We found the one spot. Double bookworm deck, Yeah, no, it's just bad. I mean, the funny part is, if anybody ever cast it for the cheaper cost, I think I would just be thrilled. The decks I tend to play very expensive cards. I guess there is a world where you're playing against Lorehold or Silverquill or something where they may not have that, you'll accelerate them so they'll get something down a turn early, but they may not be able to fully capitalize on that mana in the long run. But come on, you just can't. Now, we do have, excuse me, a very powerful Mystical Archive card. It's Electrolyze. 1 blue-red instant. Does 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 targets, and you even get to draw a card.
Yeah, I like Prismari quite a lot. So if this was currently the first pick, first return pass caller, I would take Electrolyze. It's the kind of card I like to make attacks with. It's like I can attack my 2/2 and my whatever 4/4 into their 3/3 and 5/5, and then what are they gonna do? You're gonna expect a thing. It could be nothing. It could be something. I don't really care how they block. Whatever, I can electrolyze something.
Yeah, totally.
I probably could craft a better attack block.
No, I kind of liked it because if they put the 3/3 on the 5/5 and take the 4 power, you still get them, right? So
that's like the hidden mode of Electrolyze it that enables attacks. The normal mode is it kills their 2/2.
Right.
Or kills their 2/1/1s. It counters best summoning, draw a card, or their 1 or 2 life and you kill them. But yeah, I'm always attacking. So Electrolyze kind of opens up attacks nearly freely. It's not like it opens up attacks like a shock would. Like I'm not attacking a 2/2 and a 4/4 or whatever. But if I have a shock, but if it's Electrolyze, it's much different.
Totally. You get the card back and you can continue building out your board. So would that be your pick out of the pack? Would you take Electrolyze?
Yeah, so far.
That's the last one.
Oh, it is?
Mm-hmm.
The rare was Verdant Mastery.
Yeah.
I didn't consider that.
I'm sorry, but the rare was Verdant Mastery. Yeah, you're going to have to pass that one along to somebody else. Yeah, I think I would take Electrolyze. out of the pack, this is a pretty strong pack. It's reasonable. I like Umbral Juke, Humiliate, Return Pass Color, Electrolyze. And then, maybe like a slight nod to Elemental Summoning, but I don't usually take it quite this highly. And, when you think about Electrolyze, there's also, it's not just the card in and of itself, right? This is also a format where copying things with Rutha is, can get you even some card advantage out of it. And then, of course, triggering Magecraft while also replenishing your hand as a cantrip is also another, benefit to a card like that. So there's just too much good stuff going on with Electrolyze for me to pass it. And like you mentioned before, I think of the Return Pass Caller the same way you do, where if I take it there, I'm not like, all right, Lorehold, let's go. I'm like, I'm splashing this. Like, I'm probably going to be Prismari, and I'm probably going to try to sneak a white man in here so that I can kind of end the game with Pass Caller when it gets to that point. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, if I take Electrolyze, I don't have to be just Prismari too. Like we say, splashing.
Mm-hmm.
I've been Quandrix with like a few red cards. Say it could be Explosive Iteration or Rutha, and Electrolyze can be one of those in the mix too. Like
totally.
It's pretty easy to splash red in that.
It is. It's really good against Silver Quill as well. Like you can often nab two things. Okay, Tom, let's that was great, and it gave us a decent idea of some of your approaches to the format, but we will be talking about those as more. But I wanted to zoom out just a little bit before we get into the nitty-gritty of that and just sort of check in with you. How have things been? How have the last few years been like for you as far as Magic? What have you been up to? How's your career path gone and all of that? How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, man. I've been picking up on streaming. I don't know if it's all my stuff is here, but you can check me out on Twitter. All the information is there.
Oh, it'll all be in the show notes too. Yeah.
Word. Yeah, I have a Discord going on. I've been playing a decent amount of Modern, and I've been playing a lot of Limited lately as well. I'm doing a lot of game design work, both personally and for other companies. Not really can speak to at the moment, but that's kind of been what I've been up to the last year and a half to 2 years, whatever, since I did my year stint at Wizards, where I worked on like the Ravnica sets and Modern Horizons, and I think it was like M20 and a little bit of Throne Eldraine.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
I did a bit of work with Modern Horizons too. I was an outsourced contractor for them.
And the spoilers for those are coming out now, so you're starting to. Have you been keeping up on it and seeing how people are reacting to the set?
Yeah, I try to pick up every bit of Twitter posts, and I watch the Magic live stream, the actual Magic Twitch channel live stream with Dan Musser and Blake Ramuson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the finished set looks like, so don't ask me any questions about that.
Okay.
It was very early on. It was in 2019 when.
Gotcha.
When I looked at the file, gave feedback, added some cards. There is one card in the set that made it through that I designed, which I'm proud of.
Ooh, and it hasn't been shown yet, though. We have to wait.
Yeah, it's not been shown yet.
Oh man, we got a couple of preview cards for LR. I hope it's one of them. That would be cool. Unless it's some big splashy mythic, then we usually don't get those. But
it's not a big splashy mythic.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll put the cards up when they go up, and then if it was one of them, you let us know, because I'd be curious. How did that work, by the way? So you had a stint at Wizards of the Coast working on play design. When did you start? How did that all happen?
I think I started in the fall of 2017. I just got kind of word that they were making a modern-centric set, and I was very modern-focused at the time. I was like playing on SC Circuit. Modern is one of their formats they had on their tour.
Mm-hmm.
I was like top editing things with like 8-Rack and Infect and Tron, and just kind of whatever, just kind of taking a draw with 8-Rack and like, whoa,
yeah,
it's weird.
Yeah,
he's like the guy. And I used to do versus videos with Michael Majors. Michael Majors went to Wizards. Michael Majors gave me a recommendation. They wanted one more guy. Along the work at Modern Horizons, I was like, I want Dan Musser to do this because he's also great. Dan Musser came with me. We drove all the way from Virginia to Seattle, which was nearly 40 hours.
Wow, you drove that whole way?
We went through snowstorms and everything.
Crazy.
But I think me and Majors and Musser and the other people we had on, Adam Prozac with lead design of that set, we all did pretty good work. Ended up that Dan actually started doing some, what's the game? I can't remember the other game. Duel Masters. He started working on Duel Masters. He went to Japan a bunch. Got hired full time on Duel Masters, but eventually went kind of not full circle, but back around to when they started doing Modern Horizons 2, and he is lead design of Modern Horizons 2.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, so he did a bunch of work on that, and yeah, I'm proud of what he's done, and a little bit of I did for this set, especially of what we did for the previous set. There were some outliers, of course, but there was a lot of good hits that people love, and the special limited format. I'm pretty proud of that.
For which set?
The limited of Modern Horizons 1.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, God, yeah. It's considered an all-timer. I mean, that was about. I mean, I think you would get an AA plus for that. So yeah, you should be really proud of that work. That set was fantastic for limited. I wonder if the new one will live up. You're known for like a lot of different skills at the professional level, right? I mean, kind of expansive as far as like deck brewing, that type of stuff, tuning, but also limited stuff somehow. How would you describe yourself as a limited player?
My favorite format is two-headed giant, believe it or not.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think I'm unbeatable with two-headed giant.
Who's your best partner? Who's the tag team for your two-headed giant dream team?
It could be whoever.
Oh my God! Look at this guy. You just pick up somebody from the random local store and just take them to the championship, huh?
I mean, that's just kind of how it is. I have two hands. I draw double the cards.
Oh my God! So you're basically just like playing two seats of blackjack magic.
Yeah, I like it just because it's so early in the format. It's usually only have two-headed giant at pre-releases, and I love pre-releases.
Yeah,
because I like to study the spoiler, or the set of preview cards, whatever's going on at the moment, and I just like to get ahead. My success at limited Grand Prix, I have 3 limited Grand Prix top 8s, and they always come early in the format before everybody else catches up.
Yeah, so that's kind of become the name of the game for limited. That's what this show tries to do, right? With the set reviews and stuff, is tries to get people prepared before the cards are out or as they're coming out so that they can be ahead of the curve. But, we even see that people are taking that one step further with analytics and stuff now from 17 Lands and sites like that, getting kind of interesting how that's going. But it does still feel like the best time to have the edge is if you're willing to do what you were talking about, to do your study, and you can get a pretty big edge early in the format still. Yeah,
there's tons of content out there, especially limited resources that can teach you about the early on parts of the limited format.
Mm-hmm. How would you describe your overall approach to limited?
It's all about fundamentals. I mean, when I look at the set, I do it basically as if I'm looking at a 7th edition core set or whatever. It's like, number 1, get the removal. Number 2, get the evasion cards. Bombs are up there, but I'm not going to address bombs right now. Mm-hmm. So it's like removal, evasion, mana fixing, if it's a mana fixing heavy format. Mm-hmm. And then bombs are kind of intermixed in there.
When you get lucky and you can get them.
Yeah, it depends on their effect.
Mm-hmm.
Like a bomb can be a weird Wrath of God or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It could be Plague Wind. That'd be a bomb. Whatever. It could be an Elder Gaggeroth. It could be something that's unblockable. It could be your name nemesis or whatever. It could be just a very efficient rule spell. Maybe it's a Doom Blade. I don't know. But bombs are just efficient forms of what you should be prioritizing anyway. Which should be interaction / removal and evasion, making it hard for them, their battlefield, to deal with you, and then making sure you can cast your cards. And in that mix, it should be like making sure you can smoothly cast your cards, which should be getting into like mana curve and stuff.
I see. And so for you, you start off with that sort of that's your idea of this. These are the fundamentals that I want to try to hit. And then how do you adjust those to the needs of whatever set is in front of you, since different sets have, kind of different incentives built into them?
It gets easier, once I know the set more. But if I just cracked open the pack and just never looked at it, and I saw, say, let's see, Heated Debate versus Wither Bloom Apprentice, I would take Heated Debate in the dark.
It's more scarce.
It's just what has worked in the past, so I just use like my past learnings to use them for whatever current limited is going on. It's very rare that things just wildly change. I think the wildest change in like a limited format was like Rise Eldrazi.
Yeah,
it's like wow, now like there's very little cheap removal, and it's okay to get 15 mana. That's just not what I'm used to in limited. But as far as Strixhaven goes, it's pretty normal. There are more like 2-for-1-ish things going on with learning the lessons, but that's not completely true, because sometimes you go Guiding Light and like Expanded Anatomy, and is a 4 mana +3/+3 really a 2-for-1? No, not really. But Rise Exodus into, say, Fractal Summoning is. I mean, the line is blurred. The games go a little bit longer sometimes. But in general, like, you want to remove their big thing. You want to make it hard for them to block with the evasion or whatever, and just solid like general creatures. And you want to make your mana okay. You want to be able to cast your spells. Right. If you just follow those in general importance, maybe in that order, or maybe you can intermix them, then you should do well.
Do you leverage your experience as a professional game designer to kind of help you reverse engineer what a set might be trying to do, like when you're first exposed to it?
I can kind of see what the designers are trying to do with the card, I guess. I guess I'll call a Modern Horizons 2 card Grief, or a card named Grief. I'm like, this looks very strong, but how strong is it? Because it is a 1-for-2 on paper. For reference, it's a 2 and 2 black, 3/2 menace. When enters the battlefield, target player reveals their hand and exiles or it discards a non-land card. And it has evoke. Exile a black card from your hand to evoke it. So you can play it on turn 1 by exiling a black card in hand for 0 mana. So I'm like, how does this play out in the set in Modern? Why is this? It looks so powerful, so amazing, but it's just a 1-for-2 on average. But it has some new combos. It has combos like Ephemerate or whatever. But that's not going to come up as much as people think in practice. It's going to be a very like hyped card, very very looked at. But I can kind of like see through the minds of the designers a little bit, kind of like walk through their thought process. Like, why is this card not as good as it looks? Or if a card looks bad, it's like, why is this card better than it looks? Like, if like you show up like a weird mythic or rare, I'm trying to think of one out of Strixhaven that is very underappreciated.
I mean, I don't know if it fits your description, but one I can think of that people, I don't know if it's underappreciated, but that's hard to understand is the 4/4 for Prismari that like has the weird Magecraft trigger where like if your creature dies, you get an elemental instead. Like those are the types of cards that I look at and I go, what happened here? Like, what was, these are the ones that where like I've been doing this for long enough to have like a sense for the game design aspect, but having never actually worked on a game myself, those are the type of cards that I can't sort out what this was meant to be, or maybe it started off some other way and this is the fourth iteration and they had to just ship it, or, but it just gets, when they get confusing or overly wordy or kind of like, what was I supposed to take away from this type thing,
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that 4-mana hybrid Prismari 4/4. I mean, it looks like an uncommon power level card to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clearly not constructed playable. Like I don't really know what it's doing. It's just kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
It has a bunch of text, which is kind of hard to follow for kind of anybody. I had to read the card 3 or 4 times to know what it did.
Same.
So there's a card that I do dislike the set.
What about for mechanics? Like, so we're talking at the card level, but when you see, like, I'll just use the example of Magecraft in this set. When you see that, does your brain kind of try to expand out a little further beyond just the card in front of you and say, why is Magecraft a mechanic in this set, or how am I going to be able to leverage this, that type of thing? Or are you more like on a card by card basis when you are looking at the set early?
I mean, when I first saw Magecraft, I think I thought that the same thing everybody else thought, which is, hey, this is a school of mages, and Magecraft is just the thing they do.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a different but similar mechanic to prowess.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I thought. It's like they love to cast spells. Let's have a mechanic about casting spells, and let's make it a little bit different. And they could like get their trigger off copying. That's cool. Whatever is different than prowess. Whatever is what I was thinking. I did not think that like it would come up with like Mentor's Guidance or Weather Storm or Mizzix's Mastery or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like that did not cross my mind of how potent that could be. Or even Plum the Forbidden, like little combos like that you discover later. I mean, that did pop in my mind that things that should happen through gameplay. But yeah, first impression was just like, okay, it's a school of mages, and they're playing spells and having fun and getting better because of cast spells.
That's what I thought too. Yeah, and then it the more obvious one in retrospect, especially, was just learning and lessening. Right? It was like when you understand that all of the learn cards outside of Precious Few are actually spells themselves, right? They didn't throw learn onto creatures haphazardly, right? There's like an uncommon and a rare or something. They were very careful not to overdo that. And then all of the lesson cards are, sorceries basically, or, they can be creatures, but they're still sorceries type thing. Then you're like, okay, every single time I do this, I get 2 Magecraft triggers. Right, at some point during the game. It's like, okay, well, now I'm starting to see why because Magecraft, it felt very Prismari, right? I thought, okay, yeah, these make sense. But then it's like, well, why does this random Witherbloom card that, have Magecraft or whatever, or maybe not Witherbloom, but, the colors the cards that don't jump out to you as being Magecraft necessarily.
Lorehold or whatever.
Lorehold, right. And it's like, okay, I'm picking it up. Like, these things are weaving together, on a bigger picture, perspective. Do you have a limited style? We've had pro players on before that kind of, one that stands out was like Mike Segrist. He described his style as like, he would like to be able to turn his library over and you turn your library over and you both agree that he's going to win. Right? Like, he wants inevitability. He wants to have answers to everything. He wants to be able to grind you out, and he feels that it accentuates his skill set, right? To be able to do that. When he drafts a super aggressive deck, which he'll do when it's in front of him, he feels like it doesn't accentuate his skill set because you know how it goes. You run out of cards and you're like, well, I'm top decking 2 drops on turn 9 or whatever, and I'm not going to win. Do you have an approach that suits your style?
Yeah, I want to be very similar to that. I want to be able to solve every situation. I want to have I just want a deck full of stronger cards than them. I want to draft stronger cards because I evaluate cards better than my opponents, and I just want to take the best cards out of the pack. And while, of course, being able to deal with most situations, not leaving holes in my deck in the curve or lack of removal or lack of creatures. But that just all comes with like familiarity with the limited format, and in sealed it's a little bit harder because you have to like deal with a mass of cards at once and try to evaluate. Hey, do I want this bomb versus like, okay, it's really hard to cast this bomb because my mana fixing is just these 2 lower hole campuses or whatever, and a letter. So in general, I like the process of sealed a little bit better than draft because I think it's the mass of information is hard for people to comprehend at once and deal with in like a small amount of deck building time. Because I still to this day do not believe I ever built a sealed deck correctly. And every Grand Prix I've been to, every sealed Grand Prix after round 1 or the first round I play or whatever, I would go to the farthest table I could find away from everybody else and just lay out my deck again and try to figure out how to build it more or build it better or how to sideboard cards in to make a better deck for game 2, because I just never build a sealed deck correctly. I just don't believe it's enough time.
It's extremely difficult.
Really hard.
Do you find that you're too conservative or too greedy with your sealed builds? Like, do you make your build, you go play your first round, and right away it like sinks in like, damn it, I pushed too hard. I didn't actually need this card. My deck was totally fine without this splash. Or is it the other way?
Yeah, I definitely start off too greedy.
Yeah, me too.
I start off usually start off 3 colors because like these cards are powerful. I don't know if they're good or not, or what the splash is worth it or not. And the only way to really find out is to play a deck once, and I don't have a free run of it because I'm sitting down in the deck building. It's timed. I can't like test against a friend right quick and see if things run out. I do like solitaire my deck as much as I can in deck building while time allows. And to see this opening hands, okay, can I cast my cards? Okay, maybe I should cut this, cut that, but this is a lot to deal with all at once. But yeah, in general, I'm too greedy. But the greed is part of wanting to deal with every situation all at once. I want to beat everybody. I want to like have all the removal for the big things. I want to have a deck that's powerful enough to beat everything. I want to have a deck that's consistent enough to not get mana screwed. And that's just not true. You can't have all of it. You can like pick 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 or whatever. And I mean, if you want to go 7-2 at a Grand Prix, you have to like take your losses where you have to. Maybe you get mana screwed in 2 losses. Maybe you get beaten by more powerful cards in 2 losses. But you have to deal with it somehow.
Yeah, I think the best you can hope for is to cover a decent number of those bases and then have a plan for when you face down the opponent who presents the things that you can't deal with or that you can't go toe to toe with, and at least be able to change your deck around in a way that gives you a better chance against them. And I mean, that's going to be tough, right? Because oftentimes you'll be down a game by the time you can do that if you're in a particularly bad matchup. But it is funny hearing you say this. It's the same thing for me. I can't tell you how many times I've built a deck, pushed it just a little too far on the greed, taken my opening hand, and just immediately I was like, I didn't need to do this. Like, this deck was fully functional. It had the tools. If you would have handed it to me without this extra card that I, an extra color or an extra couple of cards that I sort of shoehorned into this deck, I would have been like, this is totally fine. It has removal at each part of the curve. It has some inevitability. It has good power level. Like, mana's fine. I'm good to go. But then there's this bomb that I could probably justify. Plus, if I'm going to do that, I might as well put the removal spell that's the same color as the bomb that's really good, and I knock my deck. It's not a disaster, right? I'm not submitting a deck that's unplayable or something to get to this point, but I'm, giving up enough consistency that the power level's not justified. And there's something about playing the first game or looking at opening hands. I do the same thing that you did that solidifies that for me, where I'm like, no. Like, get these cards out of here. I don't need them. I'm just fine. And, I don't know if it's just my conscience or what, but, something jumps out and forces me to try to tone it down. But oftentimes I've already submitted it as my opening deck. That's how it goes.
Right.
I had an interesting situation along those lines where I played in the Arena Open a few weeks ago, and I got 2 Cultivate, and I had a full suite of black removal and a couple of good black-green cards. So I thought, okay, I'm going to be Witherbloom base, but I almost never play 2 colors in Strixhaven sealed, and especially with 2 Cultivate. And the world, I had access to it all. I mean, I had all of it as far as removal went, which was fantastic. But it meant I had to draw the line. I had to draw the line somewhere. And even though I was playing 2 copies of the Elemental Mastery or whatever, the one that makes 2 4/4s. So I'm playing blue and red cards in my green-black deck. I did not play either of my 2 copies of Heated Debate. I did not main deck my Electrolyze, which I regretted slightly, but at any rate, I did not do that. And I didn't play Rutha in the main either. And
I have to see this poll.
Right. And for me,
wild.
It was pure pain. I mean, I was just like, I mean, I honestly was like, and remember, this is the Arena Open, so I had more time. If this would have been in a GP, it would have been absolute hell. But, I looked closely at my suite of removal cards, and I'm like, okay, what do I really need? And I mean, I can tell you so for removal, just like, why the hell not? I played Lash of Malice, Eliminate, Flunk, Umbral Juke, Putrefy, 2 Rise of Extus, and a Burying Books. And so, at some point in there, you go, do I need, right? I mean, at some point I could have played probably 10 or 11 removal spells and had like 4 or 5 creatures, and then fixing or whatever. And I just wouldn't have any way to actually close out. So anyway, those are the decisions that are the super Grixis? Yes. And I did build a Grixis deck as well. But I lost the 2 copies of Cultivate. I lost the Putrefy. And I still get Rise of Extus, but it wasn't quite as good. So I don't know. I mean, it was tough. I did put together that build as well, though. But I felt like the Cultivates were too important to the game plan to do it. At any rate, that was one of the few times I actually pulled myself off the ledge. And I think it's actually because I had more time. It's what you mentioned. Like when that time crunch comes, it's just, there's some pools that you're just not going to get to the, even a card or 2 off from the good build, that like, your friends would all agree, hey, this is about where you want to be type thing. Okay, Tom, let's get into some questions from our listeners. And, the first one comes from 2 Frickin' Beast, who says, what's the biggest difference you see between newer competitive Magic players and the veterans? Because you've been around the scene for a really long time, right?
Yeah, my first Pro Tour was in 2001, and I've been playing a few years before that.
So
I didn't start like on the OG level with Alpha, but Revised was out, and 4th edition was out when I first started, which was about 99, I believe.
Okay.
And then
that puts you into the veteran
New Orleans.
Your first PT was in New Orleans? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I didn't even have to win a plane ticket or none. I won a PTQ in New Orleans for the Pro Tour in New Orleans.
Wow, that's sweet. When was that? That was 2001, you said?
Yeah, 2001.
Okay, so you have the credibility here to be able to tell the difference between air quotes, newer competitive Magic players and veterans. So is there a difference between them? Do you see changes in the approach and how they come at the game?
The biggest difference is the accessibility of information. It was much more reliant on big teams, like Toja still in the game town, or like reading. Like if you didn't have a team, if you weren't in a big city with like a good store and people just went to, and a bunch of other good people that kind of built off of each other, then you have to get your information from a scry or a duelist. Like there weren't even websites,
which were magazines, right? Like paper magazines that you would get at the store.
You have to get a monthly paper magazine and read like
monthly
information that's months old about a format or whatever. So you kind of just had to do it yourself. There was a lot of different decks, a lot of different ideas from like you show up to a pro tour and there wouldn't be like a deck that's 20% of the field. There'd be like decks. The most popular deck would be like 5%.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Pro Tour New Orleans, Kai Bude won with blue red Illusions of Grandeur donate. And that couldn't have been more than 10% of the field. Probably like 5%. That was like the German contingent that made that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like now there's tons of content out there. There's all these programs. You can play Magic Online, play Arena. You can prepare for any given tournament as much as you really have the mental capacity and time to do. It's like that is how much we're willing to dedicate the game, and you'll have to like go searching for it as hard from back then.
Do you think it rewards different skill sets?
I do believe it's different. I think there is a skill set to play in paper and in live Magic. You just pick up on things, pick up on reads, the way people tap, the way people draw, just the look on their face kind of thing. It's kind of different between online poker and
mm-hmm.
Live poker kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
If and when paper tournaments pick back up, say people that came in the newest age of new players that just know Arena, that just know Magic Online, and just know like from watching streams or whatever, they may be at a disadvantage when it comes to paper because it's just maybe just too foreign for them.
Mm-hmm.
And like old school players can just kind of know what's up. Like I mean, as streamers, when you're a streamer or whatever, you won't be very expressive. You want to leave your heart on your shoulder or whatever, and make it very entertaining. And that may be a hard habit to break.
Totally. Yeah. What about, it sounds like when you first came onto the pro scene that it was like it rewarded individual creativity, I guess is a way to put it, right? Like you needed to figure out how to build a good deck in a format without as much help. But now the decision is more about predicting the metagame, but you know the metagame, roughly speaking. Like it's extraordinarily rare to go into a tournament and have somebody play a deck that's a significant part of the field that you just are unfamiliar with. That just doesn't happen anymore. People know these are the decks. The question is, what version and what percentages are going to get played and how do I want to position myself within that? That seems a lot different than if you have to come up with the deck yourself as far as skill sets go.
It's always been a bit about parsing data. It's been more about this access to the data. Like back then, whatever, in 2001, if I had more data, I could have made better deck building decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But they also were limited on data, so it's like, okay, what do we have?
Mm-hmm.
And then we just built our decks on what we have. Now it's like, okay, now look at the Magic Online results. What are winning in the leagues? What happened in the last challenge? And can I parse that data? Can I make a better sideboard? Can I even pick a different deck, or just choose a deck in the metagame that's fit for next weekend's metagame? Or if I'm like really deep into it, have a brilliant idea, I could build a new deck. But that's very rare nowadays.
Right.
Usually people, not usually, but now they're just like other than the first idea, like the grief plus the frame rate idea just spawned day one. The good ideas spawn day one, and after that, everything just builds upon of it. It's like standing off shoulder of giants kind of thing.
Yeah,
everything builds upon. Nothing's spawned like out of the blue. There's not going to be a new modern deck tomorrow before Modern Horizons 2 comes out. There's not going to be a new modern deck before Modern Horizons 2.
Right. It's funny.
So you can't.
Go ahead.
Just brew out the blue. Yeah, you can't just brew out the blue anymore. You have to build upon other people's ideas or your previous ideas.
Right. Yeah, it does seem a lot more iterative than before, where you could just come up with it. Spencer says, as a longtime listener trying to always apply your lessons, I feel frustrated being stuck in the platinum ranks on Arena, especially since Marshall and Luis have said that it's not that hard to hit Mythic. Lately, I've been upset at myself for not trophying every draft, but noticing I was still consistently going 4-3. Should I be glad that I'm going positive or embarrassed that I can't clear platinum as a listener of the show? So first thing, Tom and I can talk about this, but first thing, Spencer, I don't want you to misunderstand. Getting to Mythic is hard. What we were referring to when we talked about that is that it's in some ways inevitable, in that if you play enough, the system is set up so that you can go up. And once you hit a certain milestone, each of the kind of rank ups, then you can't go back down below that. And so that's going to lead to, if you play enough, you will eventually get to Mythic, which is what Luis and I were referring to. But if you want to get there in a reasonable time frame, you need a pretty good win rate, and you need to put in a dang decent amount of time as well. And so I would not call it easy to get to Mythic. I think it's hard to get to Mythic. I just think that the system is set up so that if you grind enough, you can. Now, with that being said, Tom, I'm curious about your take on this. Spencer's been upset because, yeah, I'm going 4-3, but I'm not getting to my goal, which is to get to Mythic. Is that the type of thing that Spencer should be upset about?
Spencer shouldn't be upset about not trophying that much. I mean, I trophy a quarter to a third of the time. You definitely should be trying to trophy every time. That's just not gonna happen. Just don't need to happen to the best players.
Mm-hmm.
To average 4-3 is, I mean, it's good. It's better than most people. The biggest deterrent to continually grinding is, like, I guess you run out of gold or whatever.
Yeah.
But given enough amount of gold, and you can get up there. But it's mostly just pick your spots. So when I start a new set, so I started with Strixhaven. Here's our process with acquiring cards and gaining rank in arena. I start off learning the format with sealed, which takes some gems. So you need some gems because they don't take gold. But
yeah,
after
and
seal's
kind of brutal on your gems too.
So gems aside, this is how the process goes. I play a bunch of seal. I'll probably play at least 10, just to know the cards, gain some cards, whatever, just to learn the format before entering into a more competitive, not even competitive, but more knowledge necessary format like draft, where you need to analyze the cards quickly because it's time based, and you need to, like, you don't have forever to read the cards, so you need to know them a little bit faster than you would in sealed. So I start off with sealed, then I go in the draft. And that is what I would recommend if you want to, like, approach a format and, like, not, like, get thrown to the wolves immediately or whatever, and get disappointed and some losses. But once you, like, say you're in bronze or silver or whatever, if you have that sealed expertise already, if you have 10 seals under your belt, then you're just going to crush it, and you'll be much happier with yourself, not like misreading cards, or not playing around a combat trick where you would have known it earlier.
Right. Get that foundation under you. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, keep it up, Spencer. I think that you're selling yourself a little short. If going 4-3 consistently is, as Tom said, already above the curve, and there's a significant amount of variance to these things, so you could just be feeling stuck. But I've also noticed that for whatever reason, I don't know if it's a way that us humans kind of interpret results in this way, or if it's just a mental block or something. But I see this a lot where people kind of come to the level, roughly speaking, of where they're at and can't get over the top for a while. And then they finally do. And then it's not a problem anymore. A good example of this in live play would be like PTQs. There's a lot of players in every area that are, like, right on that cusp, right? They're just good enough to win a PTQ, but they can't quite do it. And so they become the player who will routinely top 8 PTQs in their area. They're kind of an end boss, if you will, on that level, but they can't quite get over the hump and qualify. And there's always a player around that, oh, I've made the finals of 5 PTQs and I've never made it, or even more than that, and then at some point they break through. and then they don't look back. I don't know if it's, again, a mental game thing where you become more comfortable, or maybe you stop yourself or something, or if it's just kind of the way it works and that it's hard to do and it's going to be, you know, a slog type of thing. But I've seen this happen at the level that Spencer's at as well, where Spencer really wants to get to Mythic, and it seems like this insurmountable thing. And then all of a sudden you'll rip off a couple of wins in a row and that thing will pop up on the screen and you're like, oh my God, I'm Mythic. And then the next season you'll get it. And I don't know why. I assume it's just a human thing combined with a numbers thing, but I've seen this happen a lot. And I'd encourage you to stick with it, Spencer. I think you're doing even a little better than you think you are at this point. And again, it is hard to make Mythic. So don't put the bar at this should be easy. It is not. So
yeah, it just gets easier. The most tense part about Pro Magic, back when Pro Magic was a thing, was the PTQ level. The last round playing for top 8, the finals in your PTQ. That's the most tense Magic that there is. Once you make the Pro Tours, like, oh, this is like everything else here is bonus. It's a smooth coasting. Like I'm in there. I made it. Whatever. I mean, your goal could be the top 8 of Pro Tour, win a Pro Tour, to cash a Pro Tour, whatever. But most people's goal was to make it onto the Pro Tour.
That's right.
And then to go to their local card shop and prove to themselves and their peers that they could do it. And that's the same thing that we see here in the diamond tier. Or the platinum tier, just make it up one more tier, make it the Mythic, just breaking that barrier. What's the barrier? You don't care if you're 1,000 Mythic or your first Mythic. Maybe you do, but you don't at first. You just want to make that Mythic. What you do is it's a big relief, and it's like a big weight off your shoulders, and then it's like you just kind of coast or whatever.
Yeah, you get that confidence.
But to get there, you just kind of like not worried. I used to have a phrase where winning is just a byproduct of practice. I mean, that came from somewhere else, but in Magic, it's especially true. Just don't really worry about winning. Just practice, learn, play your best, concentrate, focus on what matters right now, and then maybe you win, maybe you don't. And eventually, if you keep that same mindset, you'll win more than you lose, and before you know it, you'll close your eyes and open them up, and you'll be Mythic.
Yeah, that's totally great advice. Eric says, who was the first big name pro you played against in a high level competition, and what was the experience like?
Big name pro.
Yeah, just maybe somebody that you respected, or, you know.
I think I played LSV.
Oh, I said somebody you respected. We're looking for respectable opponents.
In Grand Prix Atlanta, he got very lucky.
Of course he did.
It was Invasion Block Limited.
He loves that.
Wait, no, it was. I'm sorry. It was Shards of Valara.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Shards of Valara Block Limited, and he got very lucky because I got game loss, and it was draft 2 of day 2. I was something 3, and no, I had 2 losses, 11 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 15-round tournament. Yeah, this was a win in it. And I got deck checked because I registered 39 cards. So you gotta win. You gotta win, and I'm all getting to 5, and then I lost. And then I played my next round, I won. I got 9th place, and he won the tournament.
Oh my God.
But that was the tournament that got me on the train. It got me enough what do they call it? DCI rating? Not MMR. DCI rating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
To qualify me for Pro Tour Honolulu in 2009, which I swore would be my last Magic tournament. I was like, I'm gonna take a good vacation. I'm gonna go to Hawaii. I'm just gonna chill out. I'm just gonna play this tournament that I got kind of qualified for, kind of out of whatever.
Uh-huh.
But then I top 8 and got hooked.
Oh yeah, that's how, that's the best play you can make in Pro Magic, is to say this is my last one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the.
I should say it more.
Yeah, for sure. I guess you can only use it so many times. Ryan says, working for Wizards, Croxa has to be your style. Any sweet rack decks you've been toying with lately?
Rack decks. I prefer rack decks when they're just black. I never like splashing. I believe that rack is a very metagame dependent deck. That's you need to pull out your off the shelf or out your toolbox at the very right time, just kind of snipe a metagame. And of course, by rack we mean 8 rack and playing 4 copies of the rack and 4 copies of Shrieking Affliction and maybe other things like Davriel or anything that makes them dependent on having 0 cards in their hand, and you're playing to undiscard spells, and you're playing a very metal game of Magic where it's very to the core. They have no cards in hand, you have no cards in hand. Maybe you're playing cards like Smallpox where we have one land, they're one land, both top.
Oh, you gotta love that. That's
very, very raw Magic.
Yeah, just where nobody gets to do anything Magic. Ryan also says, thanks for Blade Historian. Don't lie. We know that was you. Is that true?
No, it wasn't me. My last set I worked on was Ikoria. The last set I worked on at Wizards was Ikoria. The last set about to be released is Modern Horizons 2. Blade Historian, I don't even like the card.
Oh no, you really broke Ryan's heart here.
I played Mono White in Standard, and I don't play it in my deck. I play the life gain version of Mono White. I play Heliod's and Davrios or
Davros, yeah. All right. Well, Ryan's going to be disappointed, I think. Dylan says, how did you come to be an employee at Wizards of the Coast? We talked about that, but also Dylan wants to know, what were your initial thoughts about working there?
Yeah, it's a good company. They took pretty good care of me. It's a very laid back environment. You kind of just show up and you talk about your stuff. I guess I'll go through it as a play designer. I'll show up and be like 9:15 or whatever, and then there'll be a stand-up meeting where we talk about what we're going to do for the day and what decks we made the previous days, and we're about to offer. Then we go sit down, work on some things, and like we'd have like a meeting for some set or whatever, and then like lunch would come around, then there'd be pizza on a Tuesday.
Ooh.
It'd be Magic for lunch, they called it a lot of times, where just everybody just cracks packs and plays however they want to play. They could play draft or sealed or whatever pack wars you want to do. Just as long as people are just playing Magic.
That's sweet.
Yeah, at least once a week, lunchtime, everybody would just play Magic, not play design, just everybody on the floor, everybody on the third floor, and people on other floors too. The third floor was R&D. But it was more than just R&D. It was artists, and it was creative wall building. Like everybody just had to play Magic that day. So everybody got together and got feedback from people just weren't Magic players. Like people like people that were just aren't competitive, like designs. And that was great to get feedback from those people, or people just love the art or whatever, all kind of aspects of Magic, not just people like me, which is pretty illuminating. Then the later part of the days was like more meetings, more playing, more discussing.
Did you feel like you were? Did you feel like you got to play a lot of Magic? Like, did it feel like playing Magic, or was it like work?
Hard to say, because I've been playing Magic as like a way to gain money, I suppose. You can say pro, you can say a lifestyle, whatever, but really it's just like play Magic, get some money, whatever. Did it feel like work? Yes, no. As far as places to work and play Magic, it's hard to really feel like it was work. It was work, but I treat it like work.
Yeah.
Did it feel like work? Yes and no. Hard to say.
Yeah, it was with
I
your
mean,
friends playing the game you love. So
it's a lot of both. It was a lot of hard work and a lot of fun.
okay,
It was
yeah,
a lot.
that's
It's a
good.
lot of both.
Derek says, "Hey Tom, hey Marshall, a couple of things. Tom, first, thank you for your work on Modern Horizons. It was by far the most fun I've had engaging with a limited format. Sealed and Draft were both delightfully complex formats, rewarding both the disciplined drafter and the, shall we say, more creative approach." Says Derek, to deck building. Is there anything about Modern Horizons that you're particularly proud of?
There was one card that made it in from my design to print, which was Amorphous Axe. There was a slight bit of 2 mana cost artifact theme going on. Trinket, not treasure. The Trinket Mage? Trinket, treasure, trophy. I forget which one it is.
Yeah, treasure's the 6. Yeah.
That was going on. There was a creature type matters theme that needs just a touch more smoothing out, I would say, among the creature types and playabilities. Like maybe you can get some number of goblins, not enough, and Amorphous actually fix it. And also, I felt like this format maybe sped up a little bit. Amorphous Axe was a 2 mana artifact, and you cost like 2 to equip, and it got +3/+0, and gained the Shapeshifter ability, which made it all creature types. And I was like, this limited set needs a card like this. Like threw it in design file, and they were like, okay, let's throw it in. I was like, sweet. They didn't change an aspect of it.
Oh, that's kind of cool. That doesn't happen very often, right?
And then another card I'm proud of is Sarah, which worked on about every aspect of, and it came out. I think it came out pretty perfectly, even though it's not really super modern played. I think the flavor hit very well.
Which card is that?
Sarah, the Benevolent.
I forgot what it does. Oh, the Planeswalker that makes a Sarah Angel, like you can minus it to make a Sarah Angel. That one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that card's dope.
2 white. Has 4 loyalty, -3, and make a 4/4 Sarah Angel +1. Give it a creature +1/+1 and flying till end of turn, which is a callback to Sarah Aviary. Obviously, the minus is a callback to Sarah Angel, and then the ultimate, which is -6.
Yep.
Creates a worship token, and it's designed to plus and minus to make the worship token, so you have to sacrifice yourself, which is on theme because she should have to sacrifice herself.
That's cool. That I didn't know about that part. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that your greatest achievement was putting Mana War in the set, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me, like.
Nah, that was just kind of in there. It was a fan favorite. It was in there like Wall of Blossoms was in there.
Come on, take the win. You just say, "Yep, that was all me. You're welcome, Marshall," and I'm happy. You're happy, and we can just move on, right? I mean, that is my favorite card. Like anytime that card's in a set, I don't think I've ever passed it. Like I just don't have it in me to not take Mana War.
It's strong.
Yeah, it is sweet too. Yeah. Derek says also that he's curious to hear your thoughts on the fire design philosophy. And like how much was it talked about when you were at Wizards, that kind of stuff. I can't even remember what it stands for exactly. Something about fun and exciting or whatever.
Fun, inviting, replayable, and what is it? Is it entertaining? No.
Exciting?
Exciting?
I don't know.
Fun?
I guess what Derek wants to know and what I want to know is, like, are those the type of things that are for real? Like where like that is some like overarching design philosophy that actually like makes it into meetings and on your desk? Or is that kind of more kind of corporate America stuff where it's like, hey, everybody, we're going to do a new thing, and it doesn't, it's like people are like, cool, can I go do my job now type deal? Like where does it fit on that scale?
No, that's not corporate America stuff. It's we want to make sure that every card has a purpose. So every card in Modern Horizons 1 doesn't need to be modern playable. It doesn't need to be like reinventing decks or whatever. Nor did it have to be like a top selling card, and that be, you know, highly desired. And nor does it have to be a strong limited card. It has to do something for somebody at some point in time. So if a card's not fun, then doesn't hit the F. So that's no good. It has to be fun, inviting, replayable, and exciting. But it doesn't have to be all of them. But it doesn't hit some of the number of them check boxes.
Okay.
So if it's not hitting any of them check boxes, and like, what's this card even doing? Like, a card needs to do something for somebody at some point in time. It has to make sense in the set. I mean, it could be like a card for Commander. It could be like just a sweet card nobody's ever seen before. But as long as it's like, oh, okay, card is fun to play with, and can I play with it more than one time? Okay, it's replayable. It does different things at different points in time, and it's exciting. Does it read well? It's like, does it have a purpose? Fire just means make sure a card in your set has a purpose, and it's applying purpose as well, and hits a bunch of different people at the same time, and as many people as possible without like being unfun.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So that brings me, I have to ask you then, because you were in roughly around the time that I started to notice this phenomenon, and Luis and I both noticed it, which is one drops and limited. You know, there was a long stretch of time, years and years and years, where there would be one drops that were ostensibly for limited because they were commons that didn't really affect constructed formats in any way, that were throwaways, right? They were 1/1s for one with like maybe a minor bump ability. And they were almost always traps. They were almost always the type of things that limited players should avoid because they simply didn't have enough game impact regardless of their efficiency, right? And
yeah, they're all unplayable except for Grim Lava Master.
Exactly. And, you know, that's when you get up in rarity, right? And, you know, but people would play 1/1 flyer for one and say, well, I don't get it. Like it works, right? It's efficient for its cost. And it's like, yes, it is. But, you know, that's when you kind of go for the ornithopter, you know, thing where you're like, but your cards have to actually do things. They have to have enough impact. And then, you know, we would also go down the roads where people would always imagine the cards in their optimal scenario, like in the example of the 1/1 flyer for one, that you play it on turn one and it gets in for 4 or 5, right? And then maybe blocks or gets sacked or does something. And you're like, see, it did enough. And it's like, okay, but you also draw that on turn 7 sometimes where it's woefully inadequate and not worth the card. But then something happened where the design, I'm assuming the design philosophy changed, and I wonder if this is part of Fire, or if you know anything about this, but the 1-drops now, the common ones for limited, they're actually cards you need to look at. Like they are cards that, at least in the right deck, like we talked about the Unwilling Ingredient as an example, you know, those are the types of cards you can put into a couple of decks, right? You mentioned its use in the Silver Quill deck, and then you touched on it briefly as well. You can throw that in Witherbloom, and it's a perfectly reasonable thing to sacrifice, and then you can even get your card back later if you have a little extra mana to spend and it's in your yard. That is doing a lot of work for a 1-drop compared to 1/1 for one that, you know, maybe has a little bit of evasion or can do one little trick or something like that. Do you know if there was a conscious decision to say, if we're going to put these type of cards in the set for limited, that they actually need to do something?
I don't know if there's a conscious decision. They do want to rate weak cards better. I mean, like you're talking about 1/1 for one flying, Suntail Hawk. I used to call that card Lava Axe because it would do 5 and it would get blanked.
Yeah.
It will get blanked. Now the 1-drops don't get blanked as much. I mean, now there's power creep or whatever too. Now you have a 1/2 first strike flyer instead of a 1/1 flyer,
right?
In Caldam, and now you have like an Unwilling Ingredient, which does not get blanked. I mean, it'll hit for a little bit, and then you can use it later. Mm-hmm. So I think philosophy is, if a card, I mean, they don't want people to just get run over just willy nilly. Like, they can kind of use their 2/1s for one sparingly. Like, is there even a 2/1 for one in Strixhaven? I don't think there is.
No.
But the 1-drops are like, it could be good now and be good later to an extent. and green is the only one I can think of at the moment. But I'm sure there's a few. Symmetry Sage might be another one where it's like you could beat down with it, but you also have like utility with it later. So there's just more utility with the one drops without being like really excessive. I mean, the symmetry trade isn't even a common; it's uncommon. But yeah, they just want to like make sure cards are not just, hey, I played a 1-drop and I played 2 1-drops on turn 2, and now I'm running you over. They want to make them like more spread out and usable, and like not get blanked either.
Right. And that's, and to me that really, it does stand out now, right? Is particularly with the creatures, that are common and uncommon. Again, the ones that you would expect to see most often in limited, they actually look, they're not great, right? I mean, I'm not trying to overstate it here, but if you go back over the last, say, maybe 2 to 3 years of sets, you'll see a change. Like you'll see like, oh, we needed to start paying attention to these at some point. I've always found that interesting because, I mean, it was so long that we would just tell people to just avoid those, that they just weren't there. But that also reflects an overall change in limited too. I remember when I first started playing, there were a lot of cards that were really unplayable. And I mean, like, not our definition today, but I mean, like, trash. Like, they just did not do anything. They had, they were some one-off design that didn't have anything to do with anything else in the set, didn't have power and toughness. It was just like, I don't know, this must be for some other, deck I have no idea about. And nowadays, it is hard if you stick to the number of colors required, like usually 2 colors, to actually come up with a deck that is short on at least playable cards that, you could put in your deck. Cause now if there's a 3/2 for 3 mana that doesn't have a good ability, we consider that an unplayable, right? But I'm sorry, but you can make a deck with those and beat people,
But now you have Eye Twitch, which is a great 1-drop.
It's sweet. Yeah.
I'm happy to play on turn 1. I'm happy to like have it on turn 6 or whatever.
Totally. And it's better. I think the format's better for it, so I like that. Kirsten says, hi, Marshall and Tom. Just wanted to ask, how do you think the Infect play patterns reflect between Modern and Legacy? Do you think they play similar or quite different? Thanks for the great shows. They make my runs much more enjoyable.
In Modern, it's more of a all-in and having to depend on good reads on the opponent, whether they have it or not. Modern is more, regardless of the speed, but it's more about just getting it over with and just playing your double pump spell and killing them before they get off the ground. I just say speed, but Legacy does have faster kills, but it's also slower kills because they interact faster or more reliably than they do in Modern. So yeah, you have like a more reliable turn 2 kill in Legacy with like Invigorate and Berserk. But that's going to involve like Force of Will in their thing or dazing their thing or whatever. Where Modern is kind of like hope you don't have it. You need to like kill them before they can establish their thing or play their Lily on the Veil or whatever they're doing. Ren and 6 Electrolyze, who knows what they're trying to beat you with. Legacy is more, I guess, more interactive. You don't want to interact in Modern, but you do play things that stop them from doing things to you, like Bonds of Last-Foot and Possible Blessing and Blossomy Defense. Where in Legacy, you're more trying to deal with the format in broad while also trying to protect yourself. Is mostly because Daze and Force Will the cards, which double as stopping them as well as protecting your combo. So yeah, to answer your question,
it sounds actually quite different, but
it is quite different. And yeah, Legacy is more of trying to do everything, and Modern is more like get them dead, get it over with. And Legacy is more about picking your spots.
Okay. Timothy says, as a WotC employee and former professional player, what changes would you make to a typical set release in order to make it the perfect draft/sealed experience? Would such a set have enough of an audience on its own to sell well, or sets like Conspiracy the closest we can get?
I think I watched it. Did in your last podcast you mentioned like should environmental sciences be on the freebie? Maybe I watched something else. Anyway,
That was us.
the,
Yeah.
the more the more mana fixing, the better. Like I would always just try to slip in if it didn't have a say in evolving wilds instead. I'd probably just try to slip in evolving wilds.
Mm-hmm.
I probably just try to slim down on some mana costs. Like if something costs 2 GG, I would make a lot cost like 3G or something, which is something they've kind of started doing lately. Just make things more castable. People just like playing with their cards of the different colors, not like being massacred is like the worst experience that new players can have. It's like, well, I mean, play this game, I can't cast my spells, make it easier on them. It just goes through any number of players, any experience that you have. I mean, 20-year-old players experience the same things as somebody playing at a pre-release, and that's a fault of the game design of Magic. You can't really get around it. It's just the way the game's designed. So as long as you can smooth that out as much as possible, it's going to make a better limited experience. So anytime I can fit like that letter of acceptance or that prismatic prism or just that whatever, just make the sealed deck just more palatable for people, or like maybe they have the choice at least during draft to like take their mana fixer versus their playable, just give them that choice to make their deck functional. Just make all decks functional and limited would be how I would improve it.
Okay. Alex has a bit of a curveball for us here, Tom. Now, I don't know how much you're up on this stuff, but we're going to try to field this one. Alex says, "Hi, Marshall and Tom. I have a lore question for you. Do the planeswalkers choose what colors of mana they are able to control, or can they control all of them and gravitate only towards the colors that fit their personality or life outlook? Thank you kindly." I have no idea. Do you, like, A, are you into this stuff, the lore side of things at all? And B, is it part of card design, like when you were in the building at Wizards, to understand this stuff?
I don't even know if I understand the question first.
I don't either. I thought you would.
I think the answer to the second and third questions are no.
Okay. You kind of answered that with your follow-up there. Alex, I'm really sorry, but we don't know the answer to your question, and we'll have to try to dig that up another way, I think.
I ain't your God.
It's pretty
you
funny.
Read a book or something.
There might be in a book. Yeah. That was good. Thanks for the question, though, Alex. Christopher says, what has been successful for you in Strixhaven Limited that you don't see other players do very often? Give us your juicy secrets, says Christopher.
So my favorite deck to draft is Mardu at the moment, because I feel like you get density of learn cards and density of removal cards and density of like evasion and / strong cards. I like it because it's a 3-color pair that has 2 campuses that aren't really taken that much. It has Lorehold and Silver Core Campus, and those are 2. Well, Lorehold isn't drafted very much at all, so you just get the campus all the time. And Silver Core is often like you need to take the playables, you need to take the lessons, and the campuses are like second nature, and sometimes they just want to play 15 or 16 land anyway, so they're not even caring about the campuses. So if you play this Mardu deck, then yeah, you can get like the requisite number of campuses, which is like 2 to 4. You want like 2 to 4, at least 2. And then you can cast like anything between like Heated Debate and Rise to Exodus without too much problem.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the big secret is Mardu?
That is,
I like it.
My secret at the moment. I mean,
okay.
Everybody has their pick orders, whatever, the preferred archetypes, but Mardu is like not really on the radar of most people. It's like, there's 5 different schools, and like people know about Temur, like green, blue, splash red, and like what do you do after that, whatever.
Yeah.
But
okay.
I mean, yeah, if I open like red, white bombs, and that's what I like to go into. I just be like, okay, I'm on Mardu every time I open that Lorehold command or
All the
or
good
that
stuff.
2/5, the mixed spirits or whatever,
Yeah.
or the 4/5 mythic red white card. I can't remember that card name either.
Okay, but anytime you get those, then you're thinking that. Okay, that's good. Couple of more questions, and we'll call it a show here. Paul says, "Hi Tom, are there any traditions for Wizards employees? Sushi Fridays, intern hazing, annual laser tag retreat?"
Yeah, I mentioned like a
Pizza.
cater like pizza,
Mm-hmm.
and like a magic for lunch on. I can't be real Tuesday or Wednesday, but I mean, my last day at Wizards, we had everybody went to play curling. They taught everybody curling. It was kind of a joke. It's like, oh, what we're gonna do is like the last day. It's like everybody's like, let's learn curling, but everybody's like joking. But it eventually came like the truth. So they were just
You guys went curling, like the ice, like with those stones and stuff?
They're just curling lessons in Seattle. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy. I live here. I didn't even know that. That's funny. Last question from Robert. Tom, do you have any thoughts about Lorehold specifically? I've started to come around on it after a couple of successful drafts, but it feels like success with the archetype is a steep hill to climb. I know the LR guys are pretty down on it. I was just curious if you had a different perspective.
No, I don't really have a different perspective. It's just be using the Lorehold cards as you get them and play them and with the black cards.
That's your twist on it for sure. All right. Well, thanks everybody for the questions for Tom. That was great. And Tom, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time to have a chat with us about your experiences both in and out of Wizards. And it was great to chat with you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure being on. And thanks everybody for the questions too.
Yeah.
I had a good time.
If people want to find you, social media or your stream or whatever you've got going on, where can they do so?
Mostly on Twitter. My handle on Twitter is boss_MTG.
Mm-hmm.
And then my Twitch, which I stream semi-regularly, is just boss_MTG without the underscore. But that's the two best places to find me.
What can people expect from you on your stream? What do you tend to stream the most?
At the early parts of limited formats, I play a ton of limited. So last month I was playing a ton. This month I'm playing modern. If I'm not playing limited, I'm probably playing modern. But it can switch. Just whatever is the next tournament is basically what I'm playing.
Okay.
So there was Arena Open last month, so I was like streaming to unlimited, whatever. Now there's like modern PTQs and stuff, so I'm doing that.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, and especially for our listener base, because if you pick up the limited format at the beginning of it pretty often, I mean, that's when the information's most valuable. So we can have our listeners go check out your stream and see what they can learn. It's always good to have as many perspectives as you can, and Tom's is yet another that you can get. I'll put a link to both Tom's Twitter and his Twitch in the show notes. So if you want to check out his stream or say hi to him on Twitter, you can just hit the show notes and you'll be able to find Tom. Tom, once again, thanks again for coming on the show, and hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me.
You bet. That is going to do it for this episode. I'll remind you the show is brought to you by channelfireball.com. That's a place to go really for anything magic related that you need. I mentioned it before, but you can sign up for CFB Pro over there while you're also picking up any singles that you need. They've got sealed product too, Strixhaven, all of it. You can get lined up for Modern Horizons too. I mean, this is the type of thing where, as the restrictions slowly begin to ease on the pandemic, we're going to start thinking about getting together with people again. And, what better way to get together than have a booster draft? And of course, if you do that, you're going to need some products. So head over to CFB. If you do buy something over there, you can use the affiliate code LR and it helps out the show. And we do appreciate it. If you want to find me on social media, I'm Marshall_LR, and you can find everything related to the podcast over at lrcast.com, including links to all the episodes of the show ever. That goes back, to multiple co-hosts, all the way through to the beginning. You can hear our takes on the older formats if you're going to be drafting something along those lines, etc. With that, we'll see you next week. Jeff, am I supposed to do a sign-off or something? Yeah, I'm talking to you, Jeff. Producer Jeff, Slacker Jeff, just not even listening to me. I don't want. Am I supposed to do like a recipe or something?
I'm back.
Wait a minute. I got a better idea. Jeff, you have to do the sign off. What do you got, Jeff?
I left Marshall to flounder for a second because I was in a separate meeting on my other monitor.
Oh, wow. Maybe you could teach us about double queuing.
I learned it from Luis. It's the easy 2-for-1.
All right. So Jeff's sign off is always take the easy 2-for-1, even in work environments. I love it.